What if I told you that there was an NBA player who physically couldn't make a normal dunk? From his legendary 2000 dunk contest performance to game-winning reverse dunks, and then literally jumping over a 7'2" center at the Olympics. He wasn't just a great dunker, he was the best dunker basketball has ever seen. But here's the crazy part, that was just one side of his game, because Vince went on to play in 4 different decades, finished top 10 all time in three-pointers made, and was even known as being one of the most clutch players in the whole league. So how did he even develop this absurd athletic ability, and what made him such a dominant all-around player? Well, to find out, we have to go back to January 26, 1977, Daytona Beach, Florida. Vince Carter, a basketball coach, and his wife, Michelle, a teacher, have just welcomed their son, Vincent Lamar Carter Jr., or better known simply as Vince, into the world. As the young Vince began to grow into a young man, his father, alongside Carter Jr.'s uncle, Oliver Lee, a former standout collegiate basketball player at Marquette University, would focus on developing Vince into becoming an elite athlete, all whilst his mother was locked in on something else.
Is to try to develop the whole child. You're not just going to be an athlete.
Inspired by the guidance of his parents, as well as watching high-flying athletes such as Julius Dr. J. Irving, and hearing stories about a New York City legend, Earl the Goat Manigault, Vince would begin to work towards his one true goal.
Dunking each little ball, working our way up. Grab the rim first, tennis ball, volleyball, girls ball, basketball, like rubber ball. Like you ain't palming no rubber ball. It's either you get high, unless you whatever, or cuff it
on a double rim.
On a double rim, never forget it. One leg, and then the following year, 7th grade, I dunked in the game for the first time.
Blessed with an insane leaping ability, Carter would go on to achieve something truly unimaginable.
Got to my senior year, I could touch the top of the backboard.
However, while the teenage athlete was gifted athletically, there was actually something else that he did which helped mold him into becoming such an elite dunker. Because while most aspiring NBA athletes spend time studying their favorite players' games, Carter did something different, as instead of reviewing playoff performances or important matchups, he analyzed an event which only occurred once every NBA season.
In the NBA was a dream, obviously, but the dunk contest is what I studied. So I'm trying to figure out what he's doing pre-routine before that dunk, and that's what helped me expand my creativity.
A very rare outlook on the game, which would be on full display during the 1995 McDonald's All-American Dunk Contest, a night which would be the Florida native's first chance to show the whole world just how great of a dunker he was.
And I gotta tell you, the crowd is standing. They have people down on behind the bench here that are standing to watch this guy.
That will make the Sunshine State mighty happy and mighty proud. Wow! Oh, wow! They compare him to Michael Jordan, and you know what? That certainly looked Jordan-esque.
That was very air-like.
Yet, while Carter was crowned the champion of this contest, his dunking ability wasn't what helped him to carry his mainland high school squad to win a state championship in that same year, or what allowed him to win Florida Mr. Basketball. No, that was something else. Because thanks to his uncle, who would attend his nephew's games and talk smack from the stands.
He's like, yo, take that dude out, man. Hey, bro, you're 15. You ain't got it tonight. He's like, man, that's just him.
Carter had developed into a well-rounded player. Vince could not only attack the hoop and throw down a vicious, rim-shaking dunk, but was also capable of dissecting any defense in order to find openings for himself or others. Talent which the legendary head coach, Dean Smith, who had coached Michael Jordan at the University of North Carolina, was taking notice of. But it would be at UNC where things started to take a dark turn for the freshman collegiate player.
Carter averaging just under 8 points a game, Gemma, and I think that this is a young guy that's going to explode.
As Carter, who had been dubbed half man, half amazing, was struggling to adapt in his secondary role alongside fellow freshman Antoine Jameson. You see, Antoine, who was named to the All-ACC team in just his first year at Carolina, was the main focal point of Dean Smith's game plan, and Vince was forced to live in his shadow. Coupling this with the outside noise of his friends, family, and fans, pointing out that someone that holds Carter's ability to throw down mind-boggling dunks should be playing more would begin to corrupt Vince. Yet, Jamison, realizing just how much his teammate was suffering, began to work with Carter. The pair would spend all summer between their freshman and sophomore seasons working out together on the UNC campus, flat out refusing to head back home to their families during the offseason, and instead were focused on building towards greatness. But given how his head coach had used Vince during his initial campaign, would Vince Carter ever actually get a chance to try and fill the Michael Jordan-sized shoes that fans believed he could? Or would his sophomore season be the end of that chance? Dean Smith, having spent a year molding his rising freshman into the player he needed to be in order to find success, would finally take the reins off Carter. Vince, whose minutes nearly doubled during the 1996-1997 season, would go out and continue to throw down crazy dunks, whilst also dominating and helping Carolina to win games. UNC, thanks to their athletic wings' near 16-point per game average, had incredibly made it all the way to the Final Four in the March Madness tournament, an insane achievement which only solidified Vince Carter's comparison to a former UNC athlete. But this was only the beginning, as after aiding UNC to yet another Final Four appearance during his junior year, Vince Carter was continuing to rise in the eyes of NBA scouts. And after spending time with the Toronto Raptors, who informed the collegiate standout that they would in fact be choosing him with their 4th pick in the 1998 NBA draft, Vince ultimately decided to forego his senior season.
With the 4th pick in the 1998 NBA draft, the Toronto Raptors select Antoine Jamison from the University of North Carolina. With the 5th pick in the 1998 NBA draft, the Golden State Warriors select Vince Carter from the University of North Carolina.
And as soon as I get up on the stage, I shook David Stern's hand, and he said, "Hold up, man, it's about to be a trade." I'm like, "Damn, somebody getting traded already. We already 5 picks in."
Toronto has traded the rights to Antoine Jamison to Golden State for the rights to Vince Carter plus cash consideration.
But why would the Raptors, who wanted Vince anyway, make this trade? Well, Toronto, who had entered the NBA as an expansion franchise in the 1995-1996 season, were struggling financially. The team didn't even have their own practice facility and were forced to operate out of a college campus. Therefore, the money they received in the trade with Golden State was used to help build the team's very own training facility. Vince Carter had helped save the Canadian franchise before even stepping foot onto Canadian soil. Yet, the positive news for Carter didn't end here.
Your cousin, Tracy McGrady, plays for the Raptors.
Yeah, it makes it that much more sweet. It just tastes good right now. And I talked to him. He was so excited. I was trying to calm him down. He was in North Carolina, and I just said, "Hey, I'm coming up there. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to win some basketball games." But would Vince really be able to succeed in the NBA? Or was he simply a high-flying sideshow that the Raptors picked to help sell tickets?
I remember day 2 of my rookie year, Oak puts his arm around me and said, "I'm going to make you a player and I'm going to look out for you." What can you say? So all the time, if I'm doing something right or wrong, Oak would come to me and say, "Hey, look at this. This is how you do that." So
Charles Oakley, a man who had helped mold young players such as Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan during his tenure with the Chicago Bulls, would begin to guide his brand new rookie. Guidance which helped Vince to drop an impressive 16 points in his NBA debut against the Boston Celtics. Yet Carter was just getting started, as a few weeks later versus the Indiana Pacers, this happened.
This year, 20 of them. Oh! Vince Carter!
However, it only gets crazier, because against the Atlanta Hawks, a team who had one of the NBA's best shot blockers as their starting big man, Dikembe Mutombo, was next on Vince Carter's hit list.
Carter elevates and throws it down. My goodness. Vince Carter trying to make an impact.
That goes down as one of my best dunks in history.
Man, if only Vince Carter from 1999 knew what he was about to do in his career. Yet, while many fans began to fall in love with the newly dubbed Air Canada thanks to his insane dunking, there was actually a lot more to the 1999 NBA Rookie of the Year's game. Because in another regular season matchup, this time against the Houston Rockets, a squad who had just signed one of the greatest defenders of all time in Scottie Pippen, Carter would drop a career high. Vince was not only throwing down amazing 360 dunks in game,
The other way is Carter. Oh my goodness!
and showing off his truly shocking athleticism.
Ball on the floor, taking it to the...
Oh my goodness!
Man!
Did you see what I just saw?
That's a little bit of Jordan there.
But Vince was scoring from all over the court. But do you want to know what the most impressive part about his 32-point night was? It was mostly done when being guarded by 8-time All-NBA defensive first-team member Scottie Pippen.
Carter was turnaround and over Pippen.
However, not only was the Raptor rookie able to score over great defenders, he was also beginning to showcase another astonishing trait, as on March 17, 1999, it was Toronto's fourth pick who saved his Raptors with a beautiful touch shot as the clock was winding down, a feat that Carter would repeat a couple of weeks later against the Indiana Pacers.
And Carter got him for the rebound twice! Oh my goodness, he's taking over! Vince Carter and four guys in white. He is doing the job! 5 seconds. Travis Best drops it off to Smith. His jumper is off. It's no good. The Raptors win!
How big a game is it? How big a game is this for the Toronto Raptors? We beat a potential championship team, so...
While Toronto had unfortunately failed to make the playoffs, one thing was becoming clear.
Vince Carter, very talented basketball player, probably the next Michael Jordan.
Vince Carter was for sure the man who was going to lead the Toronto Raptors to their first NBA championship. Or was he?
It's tough when you compare it to Mike and the things he can do, and now it's gonna be worse because he's also won the Rookie of the Year, so I have to live up to that again.
February 12th, 2000. All-Star Saturday night. The moment Vince had been dreaming of his whole life was finally here. If he could actually get to the arena?
San Francisco to Oakland in traffic.
About 45 minutes.
What you said. So we now, and it's All-Star weekend, so it's probably an hour 45. So we finally get there. We miss our practice time in dunk contest.
Oh.
We missed our practice time. So now I'm like, this is what all I wanted to do. Make it to the league, get it. But we talking about this to show the world, like I've had these on tape. I used to practice holding the trophy up, shaking David's third hand, all this stuff, man. Cause like this is, as a dunker, this is it.
Vince Carter, alongside his cousin and teammate Tracy McGrady, were forced to warm up during the layup lines right before the contest began. And having seen just how big this moment truly was, Vince would decide to completely change up his routine. This wasn't going to be any ordinary dunk contest.
Right here is Vince Carter with his first shot.
When I had the camera and I was like, I thought I saw it, and I did see it. That right there is probably the number one dunk ever.
For Vince Carter. And he is out of the pages of Eugenia Williams, who was the judge.
They said we had to use a teammate for a dunk, but I didn't tell him until we were on the court. I said, Tracy, get out. So I go up to him and say, look, this basketball about this height. He's like, what?
These guys are going to still try to do something spectacular. Oh, it's over! Isaiah jumped over the table and gave him a high five. When does a judge in the dunk contest jump over the table and give a contestant a high five in the middle of a dunk contest?
All right, Vince Carter with his first on the final round.
Ladies, wait, timeout. Can I take a timeout? Can I take a timeout? Can I take a timeout?
Here comes Carter and puts it down.
The first person to greet me and say congratulations was Dr. J. Somebody I respect, who I look up to, who, I recall, he started it all. He was the dunk champion. the original.
Not only was Vince, who had earned yet another nickname, Vinsanity, a dunk contest champion, but shortly after being crowned as the greatest dunker in the world, he would break yet another record, because in a seemingly normal run-of-the-mill regular season game, this time against the Phoenix Suns, Carter was beginning to heat up.
Well, you just gotta live with it. Take that! Incredible!
The now second-year NBA player was scoring from all over the court, whether it was jump shots, 360 layups, somehow catching this horrendous pass, and being physically unable to do a normal dunk even when left wide open on a fast break. Vince Carter, with this final layup, had scored a brand new career high of 51 points. The craziest part about this night, he was the first ever Raptor to drop 50 or more points in a game. But Carter wasn't done demolishing the league, because a month later, in the span of just 8 days, Vinsanity would hit not one game winner.
Loops it in, Carter's gonna get a shot off. He does. Got it! Vince Carter wins the game!
Not 2 game winners.
Clippers lead 94-92. Carter wide open for the win!
But 3 game-winning buckets.
Takes it to Sharif. Carter does it again! Oh my! Can you believe this guy?
Huge shots, which would help send the Toronto franchise into their first ever postseason appearance with a first-round matchup against the New York Knicks. However, could Vince really produce in the playoffs, or was his success just limited to the regular season? April 26, 2000, 7.9 seconds remain. If Toronto, after Carter's abysmal performance in Game 1, shooting just 15% from the field in their loss, is going to come back in this series, Vince, who has dropped 27 points so far in Game 2, must take over.
Way out. Time is running down. Carter, and here is the shot. It misses. The Knicks have it. D. Brown had the wide open shot, and the Knicks get the rebound and have won a huge game for them.
After yet again failing to carry his Raptors to a victory in the must-win Game 3, Vince would begin to receive a barrage of hate. Fans began questioning if he was really worthy of being compared to Michael Jordan, and if Vince Carter was truly capable of carrying them to the promised land. However, after eventually finding himself on the Team USA Olympic roster for the 2000 Sydney Games thanks to an injury to Tom Gugliotta, Vince was ready to prove everyone wrong, and he was going to do it on the world stage.
It was a lot of anger. It was it was just a lot of frustration outside, outside stuff. I got it out. Like when I was like, everybody gonna get it. Everybody gonna get it in the way.
September 25th, 2000. The United States is set to face France in their final game of pool play, and everything was going as planned. Until... But do you want to know the craziest part about what is the greatest in-game dunk of all time?
After the game, GP's boy had the little new cameras. That's when they went from the big joints to the small joint. He showed me. I was like, wait. I watched it 7 times in a row. I was like, I jumped over him? A footer. And so they're like, bro, that's what you were celebrating. I said, I had no idea. So KG celebrating that. I'm just like, yes, I made the dunk.
Not only had Vince Carter just dunked all over a 7'2" human, but thanks to leading his US squad in scoring, Vinsanity would go on to win a gold medal. Yet, back home in Toronto, Carter's cousin was about to make a shocking decision. Tracy McGrady, the Raptors' 9th pick back in the 1997 draft, a player who had been blossoming alongside his cousin, had ultimately decided to break up the duo, which was becoming one of the NBA's greatest. But why?
I didn't get as much playing time as he did. It was Vince Carter's show. Couldn't talk me out of it. I mean, I hated Vince, I hated to leave you, but it's a business, baby.
However, as usual, Vinsanity would just remain focused on carrying his Raptors. And boy, did he carry them, taking his Toronto side all the way back to the playoffs for a rematch against the New York Knicks in the first round. But despite finally helping the franchise to win their first ever playoff game,
excited for the franchise that we finally got our first win. That's on our belt and out the way. We tied at 1-1. We finally got one here. Sky's the limit now.
As Game 3 came to a close, things weren't looking great for the Raptors. May 2nd, 2001. Vinsanity would open his night the only way he knew how.
Carter driving to the hoop.
And continue to slowly take over this must-win game.
Keep available in as many catches as possible. How about that spin layup, reverse style by Vince Carter and the foul.
Vince was either using crafty runners near the hoop or knocking down huge shots behind the three-point line, resulting in Vince Carter ending this night with a huge 32 points.
A rebound by Carter, and that'll do it. And the Raptors have won and forced a deciding 5th game at Madison Square Garden in New York Friday night.
2 nights later, the Daytona Beach native, alongside the rest of his Raptor squad, would yet again decimate the Knicks defense. Carter was not only destroying them with his insane athletic ability, but also showcasing just how truly skilled he was as a scorer, a trait which helped Toronto to finally win their first ever playoff series. However, awaiting them would be their greatest challenge yet, Allen Iverson, a player who in Game 2 of their second round matchup would torch the Raptors defense by dropping a massive 54 points.
If I put up 40, then he puts up 54, I gotta respond.
May 11th, 2001. While Vince would showcase his incredible athleticism early on in this matchup, it was actually something else which helped him to respond to Iverson's career playoff performance.
And Carter firing over McKee, hits!
Put a body on a man when a shot goes up at your defensive end.
Carter by the Sixers. Carter will go for another 3. 5 for 5. Another hands it to Curry. Curry looks, steps back, and this is a 3. Carter with the rebound, turnaround. Another one. That's amazing. Amazing. Vince Carter on a turnaround has hit his 8th three-pointer in a row.
Vince Carter's shocking 8 threes in a row, all in just the first half, would just about match Iverson's 54 by scoring 50 points of his own whilst also securing the Game 3 victory. A back and forth battle which would only continue throughout the series, as neither team could never truly get ahead, meaning it all came down to this. 2 seconds remaining, down 1 in Game 7. Score here and move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Miss, and Vince Carter's hopes of winning a championship will be crushed.
Pass to Curry after he inbounds. Curry has it. Carter trying to get free.
However, on the morning of this franchise-altering game, Vinsanity had achieved a goal that he had been working towards his entire life. Carter had become a college graduate and decided to skip the Toronto Raptors shoot-around and instead attend his graduation in North Carolina, and then eventually fly back just in time for the must-win game.
There were some people who questioned, including some of your teammates, who questioned your decision to go to North Carolina considering the magnitude of this game. What's your response to that criticism?
I have no response. I have no comment for it. And, the fact of the matter is I'm here, I'm ready to play. I have my degree, and I have a chance to win a Game 7 series against the best team in our conference.
To it. Also watch the quick pass to Curry after he inbounds. Curry has it. Carter trying to get free. Carter at the buzzer. No good. And the Sixers hold on and advance to the conference finals.
If Vince doesn't go to graduation,
that right,
are you guys in a conference final?
No doubt.
No doubt.
Hands down.
Why?
Because we still waited on him, even though we had our team there, but he's the one, he's like saying, can Jermaine Jackson sing every Michael Jackson song? So, no. His brother, he won the Jackson 5, but Vince was just special. He was something special at that era, at that time. He was our captain.
Not only were Raptor fans let down by Vince's failure in Game 7, but Toronto as a franchise would begin to shift gears. Charles Oakley, the man who had guided Carter his whole career and kept him focused, had left. And Carter was about to face even more trouble, as when February of 2002 rolled around, the Raptors, who were already struggling, began to nosedive during the shortest month of the year, because over the course of their next 15 games, Toronto would only manage to win 3, and with the playoffs fast approaching, things were looking bleak. So Vince would opt to have a surgery on his knee, completely ruling him out for the remainder of this failing season. But It was what happened after their All-Star left, which would only further tarnish Carter's legacy with the Raptors, because Toronto actually began to turn things around, winning 12 of their final 14 games and entering yet another postseason. And while the Raptors were yet again bounced in just the first round, one thing became clear. Maybe, at least in the minds of their fans and front office, they were actually better off without Vince Carter. A belief that was only made stronger when Vince, a former member of his high school's band, who was again missing games early in the following 2002-2003 season due to knee pain, decided to get on stage at a Nelly concert and dance.
I think he's a bum. I'm going to be there to boo him. And if I could go on the court and throw a shoulder to him, I'd do that too.
But this wasn't all, because when interviewed about his sudden reluctance to attack the hoop and relying too much on his outside game, Carter would say this.
I don't want to dunk anymore.
Why not?
For what?
Get fouled, go to the free throw line?
You can make a layup and get fouled and go to the free throw line.
But if you look, you see you're not getting to the free throw line as often as you used to.
Sorry, Barry. I'll go work on it.
While Vince was supposedly joking when he made this statement, Raptor fans were simply unable to see it as a joke. To make matters even worse, once Toronto, who had failed to even come close to making the playoffs in the 2002-2003 season, had selected a power forward filled with potential, Chris Bosh, with their 4th pick in the 2003 draft, fans began looking forward to a future that didn't have Vince Carter in it.
With all the rumors and speculation that have been going around, it is not a surprise at all that Vince Carter has been traded. What is a bit surprising is who Rob Babcock traded him to and what he got in return.
Who comes out on top of this trade?
Well, if the New Jersey Nets get a healthy Vince Carter, then I don't think there's any question.
Did you want to be traded from Toronto, and why did you want to be traded?
It's one of those things. I look at our team in 2000, and we were right there in the elite groups with the Sixers and the Bucks and everything, and we haven't done as well since. And it's just been a tough road for me, and it was just time for a new change.
It's been said about you that the drop-off in your numbers over the last 4 years is evidence that the Vince Carter we saw maybe in 98, 2000, 2001 is as good of a Vince Carter as we're ever going to see. How do you respond to that?
I still have room to grow.
Vince Carter, playing alongside a point guard in Jason Kidd and wing in Richard Jefferson, who had taken their Nets team to back-to-back finals in 2002 and 2003, was ready to move on. And it only took just one game to see the potential of this brand new Big Three, because Kidd would throw a horrific pass on purpose in order to see just how truly athletic his new running mate was. And shockingly, even though he missed the shot, Vinsanity did catch it. Yet it wasn't just the athleticism which was returning, because now playing alongside someone so capable at distributing the ball,
Jason Kidd make the game easier for everyone.
Vince would shoot an amazing 42.5% from 3 during the 2004-2005 season. However, before his first appearance back in Toronto, Raptors fans' hatred towards Air Canada was only becoming worse.
Everybody said, oh, I didn't come to play, I didn't play hard, I didn't do this. Oh my goodness, never that. How I was used in Toronto and how I'm used in Jersey is totally different. So I think people just want to feel that way just because, they're mad that I left. And I understand that, and I don't have a problem with that.
And when Carter showed up wearing a Dr. J throwback and then dropped 39 points on his former team, the beef had reached its boiling point. But Vince Carter wasn't focused on that at all. In fact, he was preparing for his first attempt at winning a championship since his failure to push his Raptors past the 76ers all the way back in 2001. Yet, their first opponent wasn't going to be an easy one. Because despite Carter dropping 32 points in Game 3, the dynamic duo of Dwayne Wade and 3-time championship-winning big man Shaquille O'Neal were unstoppable.
Underneath the Shaq, how do you stop that?
A deadly combination, which, thanks to New Jersey's lackluster lineup of centers, saw the Miami Heat move on after just 4 games. Yet, things were actually moving in the right direction, because not only would Carter get revenge against the Miami Heat in the following season by matching his career high, but Vince would absolutely destroy their big man, Alonzo Mourning, with this vicious, full-contact body-on dunk.
Shot.
This lead of 8, Miami's largest of the game, but talk about large. How about that slam dunk from Vince Carter? What body control and what power by Carter.
To make things even crazier, in Vinsanity's second game back in Toronto, it was the former Raptor All-Star who hit this incredible game-winning bucket.
3 seconds. Carter looking for the win. He buries it. Vince Carter.
New Jersey would round out their first full year with their brand new Big Three with a 49-win and 33-loss record, momentum which they carried all the way through their first-round playoff matchup against the Indiana Pacers. Vince Carter would average just under 30 points, highlighting not only his insane dunking skills, but also his ability to score in so many different ways. Performances which would result in the Nets moving on to the second round. However, awaiting them once again was the Miami Heat. While New Jersey did manage to win Game 1,
Oh, Jersey, they got Vince Carter, Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, oh my God.
Shaq, who was even hungrier after his failure in the 2004-2005 season to produce a title for Miami, would destroy the Nets and take his Heat squad all the way to win the 2006 NBA championship. While Vince had yet again been eliminated from the playoffs, far short of his title dreams, New Jersey was really just one big man away from being legit. Therefore, their front office did nothing. They didn't do anything. To make matters even worse, their only true center, Nenad Krstić, would suffer a season-ending knee injury just 22 games into the 2006-2007 season. Without a legit big man, it didn't matter that Vinsanity would finally play his first full season healthy, appearing in all 82 regular season games and averaging 25.2 points. As the Nets would barely scrape their way into the playoffs with a 41-win and 41-loss record. And while they were able to defeat Carter's old squad, a rising LeBron James and his Cleveland Cavaliers would destroy them in the second round. Yet this was just the start of the end for Vince. Because after a horrible 0-6 record on their West Coast road trip in the following 2007-2008 season, New Jersey's management would slowly begin to blow the team up. Jason Kidd was traded to the Dallas Mavericks, Richard Jefferson to the Milwaukee Bucks.
Hi, I'm Richard Jefferson. I'm really excited to be in Milwaukee and can't wait to see you in the Bradley Center.
And after a lone season as the team's only star during their 2008-09 campaign, Vince Carter was also sent away.
Vince Carter is heading home. The Orlando Magic have acquired the Daytona Beach native from the Nets along with Ryan Anderson, Rafer Alston, Tony Petit, and Courtney Lee.
That was a shock for me. He said, you get traded. I was like, okay, great. And I said, okay, where? And he told me back home. It's just, it's a dream come true. So, I'm excited and I'm proud and, I'm just ready to represent my hometown well.
The Orlando Magic, having just been defeated at the hands of Kobe Bryant and his Los Angeles Lakers in the 2009 finals, decided that they needed more veteran players if they were going to go a few games further and win their first championship. Moves that would turn the Magic into an even better team during the 2009-2010 season, rounding out their revenge campaign with an impressive 59-win and 23-loss record. This was finally Vince Carter's chance to grab the elusive title which had been avoiding him since 1998. However, while the Magic were truly dominant, not losing a single game on their route to the Eastern Conference Finals, their opponent, the Boston Celtics, with the return of a healthy Kevin Garnett and having two legit backup big men in Kendrick Perkins and Rasheed Wallace, would take control of the series. The three centers were easily able to contain Orlando big man Dwight Howard with ease, and since Boston would never double team Dwight because their centers were so capable defensively, the Magic's perimeter stars could never get open. Therefore, yet again, Carter was sent home empty-handed. And what would happen over the offseason would truly change his life forever.
The Orlando Magic and Phoenix Suns, it went down like this. Heading to Orlando, going back, Hedo Turkoglu, along with Jason Richardson and second-year center Earl Clark. Going to Phoenix, Vince Carter, Marcin Gortat, and Michael Petrus.
Not only was the Florida native shipped away from his home, but this move to Phoenix symbolized a shift in Carter's career, because no longer could he rely on his God-given talent, as teams simply didn't believe that Vinsanity could be an NBA starter anymore. However, Vince was never one to quit. No. Therefore, he simply began studying all-time great off-the-bench players such as Manu Ginobili and began to consider how else he could be effective in his new role. Work that would ultimately fail during his short single-season tenure with the Suns.
That was the toughest year out of all of them, I think, was Phoenix, and just learning how to handle that new role.
But would eventually begin to pay off during his 3 seasons with the Dallas Mavericks, as much like Charles Oakley, who took a very young Vince Carter under his wing all those years ago, Carter began to serve that role for newer players on the Mavericks roster. However, it wasn't just his work with rookie players that helped Vinsanity to feel fulfilled, because in 2014, during Game 3 of the Mavericks' first-round playoff matchup against state rivals, the San Antonio Spurs, Vince was finally able to close a chapter that had been left open since 2001.
Comes into the corner for the win. Yes! Yes! Do you believe it? Vince Carter gets it done for the Mavericks.
But this wasn't the only hole which was filled, as after eventually being shipped to the Memphis Grizzlies before the 2014-15 season, Vince would finally return to Toronto and receive something that he never thought he would: a tribute.
Moment here. Vince Carter has received a standing ovation that has brought tears to his eyes. They just showed a video tribute of Carter on the big screen.
A clear sign that his former franchise had moved on from their beef and was ready to welcome the player who had essentially saved their team all those years ago back into the Raptors family. Yet, Vince, upon the conclusion of his contract with the Grizzlies at the end of the 2016-17 season, was set to face a brand new struggle, because while most NBA players are long gone from the league by the time they hit 40, Vince was afraid to let go. Therefore, he would sign a single-season contract to play for the Sacramento Kings during the 2017-2018 season.
My mentality is like a coach, and these guys are willing to listen.
And after this short stint, would sign yet another deal, this time with the Atlanta Hawks. But do you want to know what the craziest part about all this is?
Vince Carter was funny as hell, bro. I've never seen it so old that still wanted to play the whole game. I'm like, goddamn, Vince, you 47. He like, man, what's they keep taking me out for? I'm like, damn, you can't come out? He's like, man, you don't want to win. You keep taking me out. I'm like, crazy. You are 43 and you're 22. You still don't want to come out?
However, after the Hawks visited his former team, the now Brooklyn Nets, during the 2019-20 season, Vince would finally get a chance to catch up with a lifelong friend. Kobe, who had moved on from basketball after the 2016 season, would help Vinsanity to see the game from a new perspective.
Man, this is great, man. You're going to love it, man. Retirement is great. You know, I'm like, bro, I get to see my family, man. We get the chance to, we have girls. I mean, I get the chance to coach my daughter and now see her grow. And I'm just like, what the hell?
A mindset shift which would help his close friend to finally let the game go. And thanks to a global pandemic, which sort of forced his hand, Vince would finally announce his retirement after 22 seasons and playing across 4 decades. Vince would then go on to become the first Raptor in history to have his jersey retired, an honor that the New Jersey Nets would also bestow upon him, with Vince Carter's number 15 jersey hanging in both the Raptors and Brooklyn Nets arenas. While the insane Dunkers relationship with Toronto was rocky for over a decade, the sheer amount of Canadian players that Vince Carter directly inspired to play basketball is insane.
Tristan Thompson came up to me, he's like, yo, you are my Michael Jordan.
And you can essentially chalk up the influx of Canadian hoopers making their way into the NBA purely thanks to Vince Carter. It's honestly pretty insane to think about what a team like OKC would look like if they had never made that draft day trade. Also, while it's honestly crazy how hard it seemed for Vince to throw down a basic dunk, did you know that there was a player who was even crazier? One that simply never missed. An individual who was known as one of the greatest shooters to ever play in the NBA. That player is Ray Allen, someone so talented at shooting that he saved the legacy of LeBron James during his tenure with the Miami Heat with a single jump shot. Crazy, right? Well, if you want to learn more about this insane moment, or the rest of Ray Allen's incredible NBA career, which includes 2 championships, click the video on your screen right now.
From out of bounds.